much in the south, and it will be a cold day across eastern England as well as northern and eastern Scotland. A bit milder though for the far southwest. And then the rain continues to push its way further north through Wednesday evening. It's been quite a wet night across parts of Scotland, with potential for quite a bit of snow across the mountains north of the central belt. Ice risk continuing here. Elsewhere though, rainfall not amounting to too much. Some clear spells for eastern England, and after a chilly start to the night, well, as we continue to feed in milder air, well, those temperatures will recover. So a very different start to Thursday morning compared to what we saw this morning. A lot of cloud around, perhaps some early brightness across eastern England. Otherwise, though, we're talking about a day of bands of rain coming in from the west, and with some dry interludes mixed in between. The rain again across the south, not amounting to too much. The most prolific areas of rain will be parts of northern England, Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland. And again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland, with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere, though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with rain for most of us, potentially a bit of snow in the north where it stays cold, but on the whole milder further south. Take care.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
And welcome to the last live edition of On the Money of 2021. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we've got a special show in store as we speak to experts and players from the hospitality, retail, travel and tourism industry as we look back on the last few months and look forward to 2022. Plus, we've got a special live musical performance for you right here in the studio. So stay with us. First, it's the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
I'm Rosie Wright. This is your news at 1 o'clock. The First Minister of Wales has announced that the country will move to COVID alert level 2 from Boxing Day. The measures include 2 metre social distancing in public and places of work. The rule of 6 applies in pubs, restaurants, cinemas and theatres. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times apart from when seated. There's also going to be a limit on the number of people attending large events, 30 people indoors and 50 outside.
Nobody wanted to see the return to alert levels and to the protections that I've announced today. But we are now entering a really serious phase of the pandemic. Wales will reopen after Christmas, but in order to do so safely, we have to do everything we can to go on protecting ourselves and taking care of others.
In England, the self-isolation period for fully vaccinated people who test positive for COVID-19, that period's been cut down from 10 days to now 7. Those infected with the virus must produce a negative lateral flow result on day 6 and day 7 of their isolation period. The Health Secretary says the move will help thousands enjoy their Christmas with families. But with the possibility of new measures after Christmas, Shadow Work and Pension Secretary John Ashworth says businesses need clarity.
Everybody is anticipating that something will happen after Christmas. Indeed, that's the briefing from the government sources to newspapers. Briefings to newspapers isn't good enough. I think we just need some clarity about what the financial package will be and what the restrictions are likely to look like post-Christmas in the run-up to New Year's Eve. We can't leave people in limbo.
The UK's chief medical officers have praised NHS staff for their tireless work during the pandemic, but they're warning of tough winter months ahead. They're urging staff to prepare for multiple challenges as hospital admissions with the Omicron variant are rising rapidly. The chief executive of King's College Hospital in London is also concerned at the number of COVID-related staff shortages.
We were at around about 100 or so COVID-related staff absences about 10, 11 days ago, and that figure is now over 600. Staff are coping, partly because they know they have to cope. They're professionals, they're clinical professionals, they're outstanding people, and they're doing what they have been trained to do, but it's difficult.
Israel will become the first country in the world to administer a fourth COVID-19 jab to the over 60s. It follows the first confirmed death from the Omicron variant in Israel this week. Although the decision is pending formal approval by senior health officials, the Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, is already urging Israelis to get the dose as soon as possible. Demand for rail travel has significantly dropped since people were advised to work from home. The Department for Transport say passenger numbers were at 53% of pre-pandemic levels this week. That's down from 68% 2 weeks ago. Hundreds of rail services have also been cancelled this week because of COVID-related staff absences. The UK economy has grown at a much slower pace than first thought between July and September. The Office for National Statistics said the economy expanded by 1.1% in the third quarter of this year, compared with an initial estimate of 1.3%. Experts expect the economy to further contract in December as new COVID restrictions could be introduced. Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy has been accused of another count of rape. The charge relates to a new complainant and is alleged to have taken place in July of this year. The 27-year-old Frenchman appeared at Chester Crown Court this morning. He's been in custody since August. He's now accused of 7 counts of rape relating to 4 women. Adverts by the football club Arsenal that promote the sale of fan tokens, they've been banned for taking advantage of consumers' inexperience in crypto assets. The token scheme would allow fans the chance to vote in decisions made at the club. Well, the ads warned that consumers could lose some money and that they should seek financial advice. But the Advertising Standards Authority found Arsenal trivialised investment in crypto assets. The club said it would seek an independent review. A government minister in Madagascar has said he swam for 12 hours after his helicopter crashed at sea during a rescue mission. Sergei Gele, who leads the National Gendarmerie, was with a team searching the northeast coast of the country after a cargo ship illegally carrying 138 passengers sank. 64 people have died, 24 people are missing, 50 people have been found. You are up to date. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour. Now, though, back to Liam and On the Money.
And this is On the Money. Coming up today, those latest growth numbers are out and they're not good. Some sectors are doing well, while others are yet to recover fully from lockdown. The economy overall appears to have stalled over recent months. And now we've got new anti-COVID measures to deal with as well. So for our last live show of 2021, we'll be speaking with people from all across the economy. As always, a grown-up discussion with people who really know their stuff. I want your questions, opinions, ideas. What do you think of Rishi Sunak's £1 billion assistance package for hospitality and leisure companies impacted by these new anti-COVID measures? Do you think the economy can properly bounce back in 2022? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. Stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and you're on the money. The UK economy expanded by just 1.1% between July and September, according to official figures released this morning. And in October, there was only 0.1% growth, according to preliminary data. The British economy is meant to be in the midst of a post-pandemic V-shaped bounce back. Yet it seems the growth of GDP, that's the sum total of all consumer, business and government spending, has stagnated. What's more, this growth slowdown happened before new anti-COVID restrictions that are likely to get tighter before they loosen off and which will act as a further drag on growth. The UK economy remains 1.5% smaller than it was prior to this pandemic. The dominant services sector has fully recovered to pre-COVID levels, including financial services, insurance and so on. But these gains remain more than offset for now by the drop in hospitality, leisure, aerospace, manufacturing, house building. These sectors are suffering from the supply chain issues that On the Money's been highlighting for months now. A lack of suitable labour, raw materials, components, all of which has been seriously impacting growth. On top of slow official figures for July to September and dismal preliminary October data, we must now add the impact of the Omicron variant, which emerged during November. New Plan B restrictions, more mask wearing, more working from home, more complex international travel will further slow the UK economy, given their negative impact on broader business and consumer confidence. During his October budget statement, Chancellor Rishi Sunak based his plans on the UK economy expanding by 6.5% this year, which now looks highly improbable at best. He also assumed 6% growth in 2022. Again, that seems pretty unlikely. And when growth is slower than assumed, the tax revenues the government needs to deliver the spending it's already promised, they don't materialise, which makes politics and government a lot more complex. Now, there are signs of an economic fight back. Prior to Omicron, some sectors were doing well, and there are signs on current evidence that this new variant is less severe than the previously dominant Delta variant. But our final On the Money question of the year, I'm afraid, despite the festive spirit, it still remains a tough one, and here it is. Can Britain boom in 2022? Joining me now for the rest of today's show, two people here in the studio who have made an enormous contribution to On the Money since the show began back in September. I'm delighted to have with me as my special Christmas guests, Justin Urquhart-Stewart, co-founder of Regionally, and Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research and the former co-head of the Government Economic Service. You guys have made a huge contribution to this show, and I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you very much. Justin, what do you think of these GDP numbers? They are pretty ropey, aren't they?
They are, and during the course of the shows in September, we've been sort of saying this is probably what you're going to end up with. 6% growth next year. Come off it. We're not going to do it this year. And so time for a little bit more realism here. Was there a V shape? It was a very small V. Probably the fingers one way around as well. And I suspect what we're going to look at is a pretty wobbly W for the next 12 months. There'll be little signs, but where does the primary growth for confidence come from? And that's the difficult bit to really try and look at.
You were both involved in the budget coverage. It was a cast of thousands, wasn't it? Pretty much all of our panellists on Budget Day, when Rishi Sunak said he's going to adopt the Office for Budget Responsibilities assumptions, which he did, 6.5% GDP expansion in 2021, 6% in 2022, I think all of us went, ooh, I'm not sure about that.
No, absolutely. But there had been some signs of recovery.
There had been.
Perhaps you could assume would have been inputted into the whole model. And it is true that if you look at, we talked about October, if you look at November, what you saw was...
No official data yet on November, only preliminary data for October so far.
But you're absolutely right. There are issues in the manufacturing sector, in construction and so on, because of staff shortages in particular and supply chain issues. But you saw retail picking up quite substantially. And, of course, people had worried a little bit about whether there would be enough toys for Christmas or the presents.
Right. So they bought
sort of
early, didn't they?
Yeah. Then, of course, you also had Black Friday and probably... in
the big retail sales day,
And in December, you had quite a good crypto, or cyber rather, than crypto. Cyber Monday. I don't know how they all paid, of course, they may have used cryptocurrencies. But that will also have boosted things. So people did go out to shop, and you saw an improvement of sorts in going out to restaurants and all these bookings that we've been hearing about for Christmas. It was impossible to find an Uber car, for example.
There's definitely been a little boomlet in November and into the first half of December. But it's probably been killed stone dead, hasn't it, Justin, by endless government scientists saying, stay at home, stay at home.
Yeah, there was that lovely old Winston Churchill comment, your experts should be on tap and not on top. And this is sort of where we're sort of mixing all this all up. The good news is behind it is actually the British consumer or British households are actually sitting in a lot of cash because they couldn't spend very much.
In the round, some people have saved a lot. Some people have suffered a lot, of course. But in general, there has been more saving. You're completely right.
So if you could find a mechanism whereby more of that can be channeled into investment, and that's going to need confidence, and it's going to need, I think, government action. It's not so much government money, but in terms of tax incentives and making sure it's properly channeled to the right areas, which you're going to get more bang for your buck.
We got the whole show to discuss this, Vicky, but I would say that come April, there's going to be a really big row, because if we carry on with slow growth in the back end of December and into January, if these restrictions are maintained, is Sunak going to go for his tax hikes in April?
Well, he may not. And in fact, quite a lot of people will be saying that perhaps he should reconsider. Now, of course, he's going to have to borrow more because of what he's just announced in any case. So there's 1 billion extra, although some of it perhaps was there anyway, hadn't been quite used. But he's going to have to probably do more. And indeed, he had been talking until recently of a tax reduction that he'd have before, or at least that's what we've been hearing, before the next election. Now, of course, that was assuming that he would be able to raise quite a lot of money in the next couple of years through those tax increases, through the fact that, of course, businesses will become a bit more profitable and therefore there'll be more tax revenue and people going out and spending.
And we're meant to be growing at 6% next year.
And, of course, if none of this happens, and it isn't only here, I mean, we're not going to be able to grow in isolation. It's also what happens elsewhere.
That's
There's
right.
a slowdown in trade, there's a slowdown in the economies where we tend to have the closest relationship with, which includes Europe, then that's going to affect us too.
Now, you two, as ever, you've laid out the big picture brilliantly well. We're now going to drill down into some of the sectors of the economy. You're going to stay with us for the rest of the show. But Vicky and Justin, for now, thank you. The pandemic has, of course, hit countless parts of the economy, as we've often highlighted in this show, not least the hospitality sector, which employs almost a tenth of the UK workforce. Before this pandemic, the UK had, for instance, almost 48,000 pubs, but over 4,000 of them have now closed. And on Monday, the hospitality industry says takings were down by 40% as millions of punters stayed away due to the rise of the Omicron variant. Yesterday, of course, the government announced an additional £1 billion in financial support for hospitality and leisure firms in England, with eligible businesses able to claim a one-off cash grant of £6,000. Joining me now to talk about this is Alex Hannay. He's the assistant manager at the Rochdale-based pub, The Grapes. Alex, good to see you. Nice to hear from the Grapes there in Rochdale. What did you think when you heard Rishi Sunak putting £1 billion on the table yesterday?
Heard things like it before. If anything, it probably was a little bit of trepidation, because usually we start to think something's coming afterwards. If that kind of but I don't think it'll go a whole long way.
Alex, I obviously spend quite a lot of time in central London where the GB News studios are. I spend a lot of time at home. That's in North Essex. Everywhere I go, the pubs do not look as if it's a few days before Christmas. Is it the same in Rochdale?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm up north, but it's becoming. It feels like it's Christmassy. It does feel Christmassy. If anything, I'll say it's felt Christmassy right from the get-go in December, because I think people were worried you weren't going to have Christmas together. Everybody, all the works dues, all the family outings, they were all crammed into that first week. And I think it was fantastic. It's been wonderful, and the atmosphere stayed the same throughout. But there was always that undercurrent whenever we were talking to anybody, and whenever they were talking to us as staff, we were just thinking it's because we're worried that we're not going to be able to spend Christmas together or New Year, or we didn't know if anything was going to be shut down in the meantime.
Very interesting. Alex, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon yesterday announced that table service is to resume in pubs in Scotland from Boxing Day. We've just heard from the First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford, the rule of six is going to resume in Wales again from Boxing Day. What do you think would be the impact on the Grapes in Rochdale, on pubs more generally in your part of the country, if those same rules were introduced in England as well?
That's a really good question. So the Grapes specifically, speaking for myself, for my immediate manager, for the team that we've spent a long time putting together, that'd just be a massive hit for morale, because we all hated the restrictions. We knew that they were necessary. We thought after the jabs had been done, we'd be out the other side and we'd have seen the back of it all. The rule of six really restricted us. We're a foodie pub, so in a way we're more accustomed to doing bigger groups because people want to come out and eat as bigger groups do. So those kind of things, they worry us. The other restrictions, like social distancing and things like that. I think when you come to a pub, if you want to feel relaxed, and as workers in the hospitality industry, I think this is more generally, we like to make people feel welcome. And enforcing rules, we have to enforce some, but it feels difficult. It takes away a little bit of the magic of the experience for the staff and the customer. I think if masks are being enforced, we're saying to people, you've got to be sat down, you've got to put your mask on when you stand back up, no more than 6 of you, please. It doesn't sit quite right. It doesn't sit quite right at the back of the throat, but we'll see what happens. It was worrying to see about Wales, because I just read about that just before it came on, actually, but yeah.
We certainly will see what happens. Alex Hannay, Assistant Manager at the Grapes in Rochdale, thanks a lot for joining us here on The Money. What did you think of the hospitality package, Justin? It struck me as pretty puny.
Well, the trouble is 6,000, you were saying, that's takings for an evening.
Yeah, it's nothing, is it?
But it makes for a good headline. 1 billion, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Over that sector, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, of course, the 6,000 isn't for everyone. It depends on your rate, on your business rates, therefore your rateable value, if you want to call it that.
Indeed.
So the big ones will get more, and it is, though, per premise. So those who have lots of premises perhaps can benefit a little bit from it, but loads of others will get maybe 2,000, maybe a little bit less. So, and I've been hearing quite a lot of people saying, well, that's actually the profits of a week. Yeah, perhaps we can survive by getting that. But after that, what are we going to do? And I think what we've just been hearing from Alex is every time there is any announcement of this sort, you expect there's going to be something worse happening, and therefore you're getting ready with a little bit of financial support before everything else sort of comes on top of it. And it's interesting really about confidence, because you've already discussed that. And Justin mentioned that too. We had seen consumer confidence go up a little bit.
That's right.
What we've seen the last
As
few
Alex
days,
just said there was a little boomlet in early December because people didn't know if they were going to get a Christmas.
No, absolutely. Well, so what you're seeing now is obviously the reverse, because you can sense that in the street. But it's interesting that in Rochdale, people still seem to be going out, which is good that it's happening. But also business confidence. Some of the latest surveys are suggesting that that's also sort of falling back quite significantly. And that's going to be very, very bad for growth for next year. If you don't have investment and so on, then where are we going to go?
Very briefly, Justin, is this sustainable? Different rules in different parts of the UK. We don't have borders in this country. It's between the home nations. I mean, there's a lot of political sort of symbolism and tokenism here, isn't there?
It starts making life so complicated. But we're not used to having borders here.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're sitting here, are you in Wales, not in Wales? Am I allowed to do this rule here, not there? All you're doing is making it more complicated. Simplify the system. Just merely allowing individual areas to make up rules because of their interpretation, it's a mess.
It certainly is. Not that this show is a mess, of course, because it isn't. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, we'll be looking into retail, and we'll be speaking to a shop owner who might not be able to get his Stilton orders out the door before Christmas. Stay with us. You're On the Money.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Welcome back. You're On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, Christmas is the busiest period for retailers, most of the time. But with growing fears of the Omicron variant, sales figures from the first half of December are actually quite low, similar to those during lockdown in early 2021. Even in central London, the retail capital of Europe, shopper numbers last weekend were down 8.5% on the same weekend last year. The Confederation of British Industry, no less, says our December survey confirms Omicron's chilling impact on activity on the high street, with retail sales growth slowing and expectations for the coming month sharply downgraded. This is, of course, retail, a vital part of our economy. It employs about a tenth of all the British workforce. And beyond that slowing footfall, retailers face staffing issues, as many are signing off now with coronavirus or simply refusing to come to work. One dairy factory owner is experiencing this, and it's hitting his ability to meet orders. And here he is to tell us all about his cheese business. It's Bill Matheson. He's the director and owner of Long Clawson Dairy. Bill, thank you for joining me here on The Money. Are we facing a cheeseless Christmas? It just won't be the same without Stilton.
Well, I certainly from my side, I'd love to be the owner. I'm the managing director. So we are owned by a group of farmers. We're a farmer-owned cooperative based up in Leicestershire. And we have about 35 farms as suppliers. And it's been we've had a hard task in terms of staffing in the last few months coming up to Christmas. And that's on the basis that we sell about 60% of our volume in the 3 months running up to Christmas. So a really critical period. And generally what we have about 400 staff who work for us on an ongoing basis. And we have a requirement for about 200 more agency labour. But unfortunately, due to Brexit, a lot of that Eastern European workers have gone home. And we found a real challenge in terms of, therefore, with a labour pool in the run-up to Christmas. So I'm pleased to say with a lot of hard work there on Stilton, we've managed to supply all of the Stilton that we needed to. However, on some of our other cheeses, we had to tell retailers we couldn't quite give them everything that they wanted.
How popular is Stilton? My kids famously don't like it. I certainly do. It is an acquired taste, but it seems to be ubiquitous pretty much around the world.
I think we send Stilton to about 42 countries around the world, from USA to Australia, out to the Middle East. And we account for about 65% of all Stilton sales worldwide as well. My kids are the same. My kids, as much as I try and get them to eat Stilton, and we're gradually getting there, just bit by bit. Again, I think it does become a bit of an acquired taste. I certainly acquired my taste for Stilton in my mid-20s and haven't been enjoying it ever since. But it's so versatile as a product. Not only is it great for cheese boards, it's fantastic in jacket potatoes. Last Thursday night, getting home late, I made a great Stilton-based pizza. And, so I would really encourage people just to experiment with it, not only have it for your cheese board, but have it at different meal occasions as well.
It's a bit like Sprouts, isn't it, Bill? It gets better as you get older. Believe me, kids. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Back to more serious things, Bill, if I may, though, of course, in life, nothing's more serious for you than Stilton. But how have you been faring during lockdown as a whole, during COVID as a whole? You obviously are part of a fantastic business there, but did you ever fear for your survival?
I think certainly points during the course of last year, the team here and our owners, there were certain times where we were very worried about our impact. But actually what we found was, as people went into lockdown, our retail sales, as food service came down, our retail sales picked up. And we actually had a very good year last year due to the circumstance of people being at home, becoming a little bit more experimental. Actually, if we take this year has actually been a lot more challenging due to a number of issues we're facing. One is labour shortages, which we've just covered. And, by the skin of our teeth, I'd say, and the hard work from our farmers and all the people at dairy we've got there. The bigger challenge we're now facing is just huge inflation coming through. And, we haven't been able to recover some of that because we're in fixed term contracts with some of our agreements. But coming into the new year, very much we need the support from our customers and our partners to make sure that we're passing that cost on, because it's real. And, just to give you some sort of feel for that, over the last 18 months, we've seen about £9 million of cost inflation coming through. And it's right across the board. Energy prices are well publicised, cardboard up sort of 40%. We're seeing where we're shipping things in some jars, novelty jars in from China, the freight cost behind that's gone up sevenfold. So the list goes on, and all we really need is support from our partners to help us through this, because otherwise we don't have a sustainable business model.
Well, Bill, you, I and many other dads across the country will continue in our campaign to get the kids of the UK eating Stilton. All the best to you and your business for 2022. Bill Matheson there of the Long Clawson Dairy Stilton manufacturer extraordinaire. He joined us from Leicestershire. Where else Even a world-class business like that, and he's clearly, 60% of Stilton sales worldwide, not a bad business. Even they are suffering. There were some good things for them about lockdown, but it's that supply chain inflation. It's affecting everyone, even if you're a really pucker business.
How do you then pass on the costs? You only do so much of that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the difference for next year, I think. Those companies who are stuck can't pass on the costs. Inflation's going to be really killing for them. And those who are able to pass it through, but their margins wouldn't inevitably get squeezed.
You expecting more supply chain inflation in 2022?
Possibly, but I think one of the silver linings, if you like, for
Stilton?
Omicron. No, can't. No, I'm sorry about that, but I was brought up in Greece, and I don't know whether they sell to Greece. I would be surprised.
Come on, it's got to be better than feta.
You must be joking. So
supply chain inflation.
Supply chain inflation. Yes, let's bring more feta over if we can. The Omicron slowdown that we are seeing and we are going to be seeing for a while. I mean, yes, we've had some news that gas prices have gone up again, mainly because of politics possibly, and some shutdown of gas that was coming from Russia on that pipeline. So these things could be temporary, but a slowdown in the world economy generally should ease some of these issues.
Yeah.
Possibly, including inflation impacts, which could be slightly reduced. Maybe interest rates aren't going to go up as much. Maybe, indeed, as we were discussing earlier, there may be some reversal of some of the tax hikes we might be having otherwise. So there are possibly some positives there, too, to look at rather than just being very negative about this. But obviously, there are some things he's not going to be able to sort out for the longer term, which is, what do you do with all those EU workers having gone back home? And as we've heard, he's cut down his... Bill has cut down the range of cheeses that he produces and sells. And I think we may see that multiplied across loads of the retail sector, which is slimming down, actually, in terms of the types of things that they produce, they sell to people in the shops.
For now, Vicky, Justin, stay with us. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. We're discussing the UK economy off the back of some pretty lacklustre growth numbers. Can it boom in 2022? And coming up, we'll be talking about the outlook for our tourism industry with the chairman of ABTA, no less. That's the Association of British Travel Agents. Plus, we'll be meeting a special musical guest who'll be giving us a Christmas performance here in the studio. But first, it's the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date. The First Minister of Wales has just announced that the country will move to COVID alert level 2 on Boxing Day. The measures include 2 metres social distancing in pubs and places of work. The rule of 6 will apply in pubs, restaurants, cinemas and theatres. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times, apart from when you're seated. There's also going to be a limit on the number of people allowed to attend large events, 30 people indoors and 50 outside. Now, in England, the self-isolation period for fully vaccinated people who've tested positive for COVID-19 has been cut down from 10 to 7 days. Those infected with the virus must produce a negative lateral flow result on day 6 and day 7 of their isolation period. The Health Secretary says the move will help thousands enjoy Christmas with their families. The UK economy has grown at a much slower pace than first thought between July and September. The Office for National Statistics said the economy expanded by 1.1% in the third quarter of this year, compared with an initial estimate of 1.3%. Experts expect the economy to further contract in December. A government minister in Madagascar has said he swam for 12 hours after his helicopter crashed at sea during a rescue mission. Sergei Gele, who leads the National Gendarmerie, was with a team searching the northeast coast of the country after a cargo ship illegally carrying 138 passengers sank. At least 64 people have been killed, 24 people are missing, 50 people were found. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there. Well, a change is on the way for the weather across the UK over the next few days, starting today with some rain moving in from the west, potentially bringing some ice or snow to parts of Scotland. Still quite a cold feel for most of us as the cold air associated with this area of high pressure hangs on for one more day, but waiting in the wings are these weather fronts, and they'll be introducing milder air from the west and setting up a more changeable pattern into the Christmas period. So we've got rain coming in across parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, pushing up into Scotland, and as it encounters cold air from what was a very cold night last night, chance for a few hours of freezing rain, potentially across parts of southern and central Scotland, so an ice risk here for a time this afternoon. Elsewhere, though, the rain not amounting to much in the south, and it will be a cold day across eastern England as well as northern and eastern Scotland. A bit milder, though, for the far southwest. And then the rain continues to push its way further north through Wednesday evening. It's been quite a wet night across parts of Scotland, with potential for quite a bit of snow across the mountains north of the central belt. Ice risk continuing here. Elsewhere, though, rainfall not amounting to too much. Some clear spells for eastern England, and after a chilly start to the night, well, as we continue to feed in milder air, well, those temperatures will recover. So a very different start to Thursday morning compared to what we saw this morning. A lot of cloud around, perhaps some early brightness across eastern England. Otherwise, though, we're talking about a day of bands of rain coming in from the west, with some dry interludes mixed in between. The rain again across the south, not amounting to too much. The most prolific areas of rain will be parts of northern England, Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland. And again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland, with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere, though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with rain for most of us, potentially a bit of snow in the north where it stays cold, but on the whole milder further south. Take care.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Today we're talking about the UK economy after the latest GDP figures showed that overall the UK economy has stalled in recent months, but one part that suffered greatly during the pandemic is travel and tourism. Almost 2 years of successive lockdowns and ongoing anti-COVID restrictions have hit this vital sector hard, a sector which accounts for around 8% of UK employment and a similar share of our total GDP. Over the summer and autumn, travel and tourism enjoyed something of a bounce back. But since the rise of that pesky Omicron variant, this month travel's once again become more tricky. Both France and Germany have banned UK travellers, with many other countries imposing strict quarantine rules. Joining us now to talk about this is another On the Money regular. It's Alistair Rowland, Chairman of ABTA and CEO of Blue Bay Travel. Alistair, before we get on to the important business of travel and tourism, do you like Stilton?
I do actually. Yeah, I was very keen on that last pitch. I'm a big fan of Stilton. Yeah, strong cheese is good for me.
good to know a little bit of levity before a serious discussion. What's been the impact on your business, Blue Bay Travel, on travel and tourism more generally as a result of these latest restrictions?
Liam, it's horrible. I think, we got into a very fragile sense of recovery. People were prepared to travel, and now people aren't prepared to book or travel. And we know, messing about with the red list on and off and on and off and pre-departure tests, customers detest that because they don't trust our government anymore not to change the rules while they're away. So that's a huge problem. And now we have the latest problem that anybody booked to go away for current winter, so up to, say, the end of March, they want to cancel. So that potential earning that's been earned in the autumn with bookings when, people were supportive of going away current winter, they want to get out of those commitments, which will be really bad for our agents and tour operators, because they've got to reverse out once again all of that income. And to put insult on injury, to get Richie Sunak's statement yesterday to exclude travel and tourism businesses, but include leisure businesses with support to get through the winter. Travel is in a really difficult state now. And whilst I do think going forward we will have a sensible 2022, not until things have stabilised. So right now it's really difficult.
Alex, last time we spoke, it was I think it was the day of the first Omicron-related press conference. There weren't any anti-COVID restrictions coming in. There was just a lot of quite dismal talk from ministers and government scientists. You said to me here on the show, I think you said it's a Tuesday morning in December, I'd usually have taken 40-odd bookings by now. It's peak booking period, and I've had no bookings. How's it been since then?
I'm very impressed, Liam, that you remember that. But yes, quite right. Actually, 40 bookings at the time in a morning on a wet Tuesday turned into zero, and it's still zero. So nobody is booking anything for any season going forward, and people are wanting to lose their commitments because they think travelling right now is too high risk. So again, on a wet Wednesday morning, we'd have taken 30 to 40 bookings, and we've taken no bookings. And I don't think that's changed since our last chat. In fact, on the last piece of extensive survey work, 8 out of 10 travel and tourism businesses have halved their December turnover from last year, and actually turnover for the year is about 20% of that of the last normal year for travel in 2019.
And Alistair, you've obviously been in the travel game a long time in your own right, but you're also the chairman of ABTRA, as I said. Are there any bargains to be had for viewers who may think, well, I'll take a punt, I think this will all be cleared up by March, April, maybe I'll book a holiday? Can you get a bargain now if you're prepared to take the risk of booking a holiday that may well be cancelled?
Possibly, if you look hard and you're prepared to go to a range of destinations, certainly short haul, within the EU, Eastern Mediterranean, edge of season stuff. But frankly, what's happening is lots of consolidation in airline routes. So if they fly something 5 times a week, they're consolidating to twice a week, and what they're doing is managing their yield because they need to, because they've got the same problem up the line in terms of airlines. So people are managing yield carefully. There's no bargains, but certainly anybody prepared to go away for winter can look hard and get some kind of value, yes. But it's not the time where you're going to get a earth-shattering bargain, because everybody's got to manage their supply chains right now.
And briefly, Alistair, remembering this is a daytime show and we need to keep the vocab family-friendly, just describe briefly how the fact that travel and tourism aren't part of Rishi Sunak's latest rescue package has gone down across the industry.
Well, it certainly created a lot of column inches and certainly some TV last night, Liam. To be honest, within this industry, without a specific minister to talk to, it's very hard to know what to do next. Lobbying Prime Minister, Chancellor, transport, business, all of the ministries, nobody seems to get outbound tourism. What they miss, which is really important, is that, whilst there's been support quite rightly for hospitality, when they closed their doors in March 2020, they'd had their income up to this point where travel businesses had lost a year's worth of income on day one because everybody had to reverse out what they booked in 2019. So therefore, there's been no real income now for 2 years. And whatever we do, however we press, nobody's got that message through to government. It's incredibly frustrating.
Mr. Rowland, Chairman of ABTA, CEO of Blue Bay Travel, all the best to you and your business for Christmas, and thanks for all your contributions to On the Money. Now, I just want to bring in a few emails. Got in touch about today's discussion. Henry says, as someone involved with the hospitality industry, this latest lockdown by stealth, a common phrase, has been devastating. The up to £6,000 offer from the Treasury is frankly derisory. It barely covers energy costs in a month, not to mention rent. Alex says Britain can boom, but only if we allow market forces to act. It means no more bailouts for any sectors. It will be very rough for business, but we need a cull of the week to release those businesses that are strong, allowing them to grow. Thanks for all the great shows this year. You're welcome. And on a more merry and hopeful note, Marianne says, I love Stilton. No, she didn't really say that. She said, Merry Christmas, Liam. The new year will hopefully bring better things. The spring will bring better weather and hopefully less COVID, and people will have more confidence to start to spend again. We just have to sit tight. I like that sentiment. Thank you for all your emails today. Now, whilst the travel industry has been excluded from Rishi Sunak's £1 billion assistance package, nightclubs in England will be given grants of £6,000 per venue as they are part of the leisure sector. But for most venues, this won't make much of a dent in lost sales this festive season. And although clubs in England and Northern Ireland are open for the time being, restrictions announced earlier in Wales mean outdoor events will be limited to 50 and just 30 indoors. And in Scotland, all large indoor events are being cancelled from Boxing Day. But what does this mean for the music industry, a part of the economy that's key to the UK? It's also close to my heart. Back in 2018, the industry contributed £5.6 billion to the British economy, an amount that's almost halved in 2020, and 2021's been another very difficult year, with even star performers like Ed Sheeran, never heard of him, reporting falling profits. But it's not all bad. Why? Because we have singer-songwriter Rob Wheeler in the studio, who, against all the odds, has still managed to reach #1 on the songwriter chart, and luckily for us, he'll be playing a snippet in just a moment. Here he is, Rob Wheeler. You were a Money Talks guest back in October.
Talking about this exact same thing.
Pretty good for your career, as it turns out. But joking aside, do you like Stilton? No, we've done that one.
I do like Stilton.
You do like
I want to
Stilton.
go on record as saying I do like Stilton.
That's the main thing. But you know the music industry is close to my heart. I've got huge respect for live performers like yourself who are trying to make their way. I do hope that On the Money appearance was useful for you publicity-wise. How has it been for you, fellow professional musicians, trying to break through during the last few months?
Yeah, well, since we last spoke, it seemed to be going on an upward curve, didn't it? We had this conversation, and I was at the time a little bit unsure about how it would pan out. And sadly, it seemed to have gone like that, and then we've dropped right off again. I recently had a tour off the back of my #1 EP. I was really excited. We're going out on the road again. It's already difficult to find spots. You've got things that are being pushed back. So for an artist like me, we have to slip in between Mr. Ed Sheeran and people like that. We got 3 dates. That's all we managed to get across the line. And on the final date, we had something like 40% of the audience not show. Now, they didn't ask for any refunds.
Devastating.
Which is lovely. It stays in the pocket. But, of course, that audience not being there, and it's all
less word of mouth, which is what it's all about for you.
It's people just frightened to come out, and I can understand it, but, of course, it is a shame, and I think we're going to see this for some time to come, sadly.
And, of course, when the pubs aren't taking much money, they're not hiring musicians like you because they haven't got the money for that extra.
The pot's not there to share around.
They don't want to go for a bigger crowd because they know a bigger crowd isn't coming.
That's it. The pot's not there to share around, and obviously it does have a knock-on effect. And I do think as well, once again, my industry is being overlooked. We were overlooked through the height of the pandemic, and I think we're not even an afterthought at the moment.
Well, you're going to get your guitar out the corner of the studio there and put it over your shoulder, and I'm just going to turn to Vicky and Justin. Justin, you know, music, live events, festivals. This is not an inconsiderable part of the British economy or of our exports, right?
Very successful one.
Yeah, we're good at this stuff.
Yes, I mean, Beatles, Rolling Stones, but no, right
Rob
the way
Wheeler?
through. Well, where would we be without him? I mean, since your promotion, obviously, now he's got to number one. On
In the
money.
songwriters' chart.
Absolutely, that's fantastic promotion.
It is a serious thing, isn't it? Ministers can't mess about. They can't just think, oh, this is the industry of fun. This employs a lot of people, this kind of stuff. A lot of young people in particular.
What is more, it's quite strong in various regions. So big venues that attract a lot of people. So many of those venues have had to stay closed for a large period over the last couple of years. And of course, they were just getting back to being able to attract the people again, which of course affects the local economy very significantly. So if you're talking about levelling up and you're just killing that sector, then you're just not going to get it, or it's going to be incredibly more expensive to do. And we know already with the pandemic that the cost of levelling up, which is a very, very important part of what this government has been trying to do, or talks about trying to do, according to the Centre for Cities, has gone up 4 times since the big pandemic started. So with every little bit where you chip things away, if you like, a bit like what's going on right now, you are increasing the cost of being able to do anything seriously in this area.
Wise words. And Rob Wheeler's now going to provide the festive cheer we're all in need of. He's going to perform his single from his Midwinter Songs Christmas album. It's called Embers, and here making his TV debut is Rob Wheeler.
When the fire has died and the flame burns its lost, you will still discover embers buried in the ash. When the last bird of summer has flown warmer climes, you will still discover music in the cold winter skies. The old folks sing out a song from a time when they knew it was better. And I sing along and pretend that I know all the words. When a blanket of snow covers every red rose, you will still discover warmth in the hearts of your home. When my time on this earth has come for to pass, let no tears be shed and let no sadness last. The old folks sing out a song from a time when they knew it was better. We all sing along and pretend that we know all the words. When the fire has died and the flame burns its last, you will still discover embers.
Thank you very much. Absolutely fantastic. That was Rob Wheeler with a song, Embers, from his new album. And that put you at the top of the UK songwriters
Yes,
chart.
that did, not my performance here with you last time.
Thank you to Rob Wheeler, as well as all our On The Money regulars, including, of course, Vicky Price here in the studio, Justin Urquhart-Stewart. You've been watching On The Money with me, Liam Halligan. Thanks for joining me today and every weekday these past few months. Over the festive period, fear not, because you can stay on the money, as we'll be airing our special financial forecast show, where I'm joined by On The Money regulars Helen Thomas, Justin Urquhart-Stewart, and the former UK ambassador to Washington, Sir Christopher Mayer. We look forward to the economic, business and financial year ahead. That's airing several times throughout the festive period, with the first showing at 3 p.m. on Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Day at 10 p.m, we'll be showing another On The Money special, a compilation of this year's best Money Talks interviews. You won't want to miss it. Again, that'll be airing various times throughout the festive period. But for now, best wishes for Christmas and the New Year from me and the top On The Money team, especially Rosie and Talia. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On the Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there. Well, a change is on the way for the weather across the UK over the next few days, starting today with some rain moving in from the west, potentially bringing some ice or snow to parts of Scotland. Still quite a cold feel for most of us as the cold air associated with this area of high pressure hangs on for one more day, but waiting in the wings are these weather fronts, and they'll be introducing milder air from the west and setting up a more changeable pattern into the Christmas period. So we've got rain coming in across parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, pushing up into Scotland, and as it encounters the cold air from what was a very cold night last night, chance for a few hours of freezing rain potentially across parts of southern and central Scotland, so an ice risk here for a time this afternoon. Elsewhere though, the rain not amounting to much in the south, and it will be a cold day across eastern England as well as northern and eastern Scotland. A bit milder though for the far southwest. And then the rain continues to push its way further north through Wednesday evening. It's been quite a wet night across parts of Scotland with potential for quite a bit of snow across the mountains north of the central belt. Ice risk continuing here. Elsewhere though, rainfall not amounting to too much. Some clear spells for eastern England, and after a chilly start to the night, well, as we continue to feed in milder air, well, those temperatures will recover. So a very different start to Thursday morning compared to what we saw this morning. A lot of cloud around, perhaps some early brightness across eastern England. Otherwise though, we're talking about a day of bands of rain coming in from the west, with some dry interludes mixed in between. The rain again across the south, not amounting to too much. The most prolific areas of rain will be parts of northern England, Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland. And again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with